So, without further ado, we would like to welcome you and thank you for coming out today to the SJC Boxing Gym here in Fort Myers, where they are celebrating their 8th open house and very graciously playing host to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, as we today, for the first time, introduce to you the official class of 2018, the 10th anniversary class going in to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. At this time, one of the traditions that we started since we began doing the induction announcement here is every year between the last ceremony, which was last June, and now, as is always the case, unfortunately, we happen to lose some of our family members and friends in the boxing world, and we have 5 individuals that we want to recognize today. These individuals will also be recognized during the Hall of Fame induction weekend in June, and but it's very special to Steve and his family to recognize, especially some of the folks that we're going to read today. So I'm going to read their names. Steve is going to then give them an official count of 10. Sports writer from the Miami Herald and now in the class of 2018, Edwin Pope. Local boxing trainer from Fort Myers, John Doherty. Legendary boxing trainer from the class of 2013, Lou Duva. Another great boxing trainer from the class of 2013, Dave Clark. And from the original class of 2009, the fight doctor, Ferdy Pacheco. You all rest in peace. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Okay, speaking of Steve, this gentleman, well, I tell you, there's very little that he hasn't done in the world of boxing. Promoting, matchmaking, training, TV commentary. He's probably done some ring announcing too, haven't you? Yeah, you have. I was joking, but Steve has very graciously been the host, having us here for the last several years. And he serves as the Vice President of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, and of course the President and founder of SJC Boxing, and with the original class of 2009, the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. Your host this afternoon, Steve Cannon.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you everybody for being here. This is a highlight of the year for me for the gym. And now remember what happens today, because we're going to repeat it, but only much bigger and better in June. So if you're seeing it today, be there in June, it'll be even better. 2 best times of the year for me. And I'd like to especially thank the guys from SJC who got the gym ready, worked hard. Oscar Montilla spearheaded the cleanup, and everybody that helped out, thank you. I know a lot of people came from a far distance. So we're not going to keep you any longer. I'm going to go right back to the best ring announcer in the world, my friend, your friend, Bob Alexander.
Thank you, Steve. At this time, we have our president, Butch Flansburgh, up here, but I would like his wife and CFO of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, Kathy Flansburgh, please come up to the front. This is our 10th anniversary, the 10th class going in this summer. To stop and think about how far we've come in 10 years, it's really mind-boggling. There are Hall of Fames all over the country that call Butch and Kathy asking for information on how they do their hall because they've heard such great things about it. We have a great board, which I'm going to be introducing in just a moment, but we wouldn't all be standing here today, and many of us that are here today would not be wearing these rings if it wasn't for the leadership, dedication, perseverance, and vision of these 2 folks right here.
Right.
And we are very lucky to have them. At this time, Steve has some special gifts. Some gifts that they'd like to have you guys open. I'll give one to each of you there. And this is from the board of directors for you guys in appreciation for all that you've done.
You gotta take the war
Boxing gloves.
Take one out.
Take one out.
There you go.
We're all coming to your house for cocktails then.
Open that one up. Take that out. Okay, take it out. All right. Yep. You got more. Bush, let me get that.
Nice, beautiful. Butch, Kathy.
And Kathy and Butch are always handing out awards. About time they got one of their own. And also Beth has a one last gift. This is for Butch, of course, because he loves flowers so much.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Congratulations, guys. And thank you for your amazing service for the last 10 years.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Really nice.
And we'll be glad to celebrate the 20th year 10 years from now. All right, I mentioned the great work, and this is a year-round effort for everybody that's on the board of directors, much more so for Kathy and Butch, but for all of us that are on the board. It's a year-round thing, and it's totally out of love for the sport and the people that are in it, and that's why we all serve, and I want to recognize the rest of the board at this time. As I mentioned, our Vice President, Steve Canton. In charge of fundraising and sales, a member of the class of 2011, John Didano. Brand new to the board and fresh off the class of 2016 is Jorge Alonso. (2017), I'm sorry, there go my eyes. In charge of corporate governance and guidance, Dr. and the newly elected mayor of Temple Terrace, I knew I'd forget it, Dr. Mel Jurado. We have a lot of titles, you know that?
Dr. Your Honor.
We have our medical advisor, Dr. Alan Fields, from the class of 2009. And we also want to welcome up one of our event coordinators from the class of 2009, Brian Gary.
Come on up, Brian.
You can hear, buddy.
All right, fine.
Getting a little lower.
Okay.
One more for me. Wait,
Over here, Pam.
I'm working on it. Okay, this is my husband's camera, so I claim no responsibility.
Back up a little.
Yeah, I don't get everybody if I don't.
I'll
All right,
send you
here we
this
go.
one.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys. No, Butch wants one. Well, he's the president. I guess he deserves it. Yeah. And years from now, you're going to get.
While we're at it.
You're going to get
In 10 years, right?
right.
Right this way, guys. Got it. Okay.
Nice group.
I think Butch looked away.
Go, Prez. All right. Thanks, guys. I know him already.
Okay. Before we get to our business with the official class, we have, as Ms. Steve mentioned, a lot of people came here today, some from a long distance, and some that are very special to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. And we'd like to introduce first the folks that we consider to be VIPs who are here with us today. We have a young lady who is an advisory board member with the Boxing Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. She has been with them since their inception. She also serves as head of the inquiry desk for IBRO, which is International Boxing Research Organization, and she is a long-time volunteer with the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. Carol Meyer is here with us today. We have a long-time Florida Boxing Hall of Fame sponsor. He's also now a professional boxing judge and rep, along with his beautiful wife here with us today, Christopher Young. Chris? We have a gentleman who is one of the top boxing photographers in the world. We're very fortunate to have him here in the Florida area. And he is also in charge of Latin Box. And we're just thrilled that he's here with us today. And he is also responsible for putting us live on Facebook today, this whole ceremony. Damon Gonzalez.
Yay.
Damon, thank you. Long-time boxing judge and one-time head of the Florida Golden Gloves, Mark Streisand, with us today. Another great photographer in the boxing industry. She is also the daughter of one of our Florida Boxing Hall of Famers from the class of 2012, the great Roberto Duran. And she is also the newly engaged Dahlia Duran. Congratulations, Dahlia. And Christian is here with you.
Yay.
Christian. Great to see you. All the way from another Hall of Fame, you might have heard of it. It's the, the International Boxing Hall of Fame. The Public Relations Director and a great friend of ours, Mike Brophy, is with us today.
Yay.
Thank you, Mike, for coming down. Great to have you. We also want to welcome
Where's Mike?
a professional fighter, cruiserweight fighter, seen many times in the state of Florida, Nick Iannuzzi, with us today. Good to see you, Nick. We have an up-and-coming timekeeper that's, he's a rookie, but he's got potential, and he might make it one of these days. Rod Hirado is here with us today. Yeah. And we have a few fighters that are here that are been with Steve or fought for him for a long time, and I know he's really excited to welcome these young men. We have Ray Wood from SJC Boxing. We have Herling Lopez, very exciting fighter. And we have a former world title challenger, David Diamond D. Armstrong, here with us today. Anybody else that was not in the Hall of Fame that I missed, I apologize. Tried to get everybody. Now I'd like to welcome those that are here that are inductees into the Hall of Fame that have joined us from previous classes. From the class of 2017, we have former heavyweight contender Dave Jaco. From SJC Boxing, we have a former U.S. Army Olympic champion, Oscar Montilla. We have a longtime Florida Boxing Commission timekeeper, the one and only Candyman, Bill Anello.
Everyone that's here to sign the robe, which is being donated to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Bill.
We're going to auction that off, and the money goes to the Hall of Fame. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you for that. From the class of 2016, former middleweight champion Freeman Barr. One of the great trainers in boxing history, Dave Marks, with us today. A longtime boxing television producer, and the guy who's responsible for me not being here during the hurricane last year, taking me all the way to Kazakhstan, my brother, Ira Glass. Also from the class of 2016, great boxing judge Rick Bays.
Hiding over here.
All right, from the class of 2015, we have boxing trainer Harold Weiland. And we have another great judge of boxing from the class of 2015, Mike Ross. And last but not least, from the original class of 2009, and boy, I sure hope if I live to be as old as this man, gentleman, I hope I'm in half as good a shape as he is. Legendary trainer who is always here with us for these events, the one and only Jimmy Williams. I also have a special message from one of our inductees. He is also in the original class of 2009. He's usually always here for our events. Unfortunately, he is coming off of some very serious surgery a couple months ago. He is recovering, he's doing fine, but because of the delicate nature of the surgery, his doctor did not want him to travel to be here today because he's 3 hours away in Orlando, but he wanted to make sure we all knew that he's with us today in spirit. I'm sure any way possible he will be there with us in Tampa come June. But we're all thinking of and saying prayers for the recovery of our good friend, the former heavyweight champion of the world, Pinklin Thomas. And one last message from long distance, one of our good friends and sponsors that tries to get here as often as he can, all the way from down under in Australia. Mays Rodan is a gentleman who was a student of Jimmy Williams. He's a big supporter of the Hall of Fame. He called me from Australia yesterday to tell everybody that he's thinking of everyone, wishes he could be here, and he is certainly going to try and do everything he can to be with us in June. So thank you, Mays. All right, it is time to formally introduce the class of 2018. Some of which are here with us today, and when we get to them, we're going to ask them to come up and be recognized. You don't have to make your speech now, don't worry. We're going to start with the category of trainers. This gentleman first drawn to boxing in the heart of Miami's Overtown at Gibson Park. This former street cop and Vietnam veteran saw a way to get troubled kids off the streets and instill discipline in their lives through boxing. He started with 50 kids in June of '83. In 5 years, he watched 2,500 young men walk through the doors. Some serious fighters with Olympic aspirations. After retiring from the Miami Police Force, he devoted his full time to boxing, both amateur and professional, and fulfilled his Olympic aspiration as an assistant coach for the U.S. Olympic boxing team. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Patrick Burns. Jermaine Taylor, and the last one that won the gold medal. Knocked out the Cuban kid, you know what I'm talking about?
David Reed.
David Reed, that's right. David Reed was one of Patrick's fighters. Yeah, I think Patrick wanted to come here, but he had a wedding he had to attend today, so he couldn't be with us. But he'll be there in June. Our next inductee comes originally from Cuba, started boxing at 8 years of age. 12 years later, at the age of 20, he retired from amateur boxing with a total of 168 amateur fights. 151 wins, only 17 losses. Started training fighters himself at the age of 17, while he was still an active boxer. He was a head coach for the Havana City team for 17 years, was able to place 3 boxers on the famed national team. One became a world and Olympic champion, another a youth world champion. He's been in Miami for over 20 years, training professional amateur boxers. During his time, he's worked with 5 Olympic boxers, Luke Campbell, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Jermaine Taylor, Amir Khan, and Zahir Rahim, and 2 world champions, Rigondeaux and David Hay. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Jorge Rubio. He is here with us today.
Very nice,
Jorge.
All right.
Still got it. Our next inductee as a young boy was a flyweight boxer in Cincinnati, where he was living at the time. He fought under the name of Kid Thunderbolt. He and his family moved to Miami Beach in the early 40s. He lived and loved everything about boxing. He started promoting boxing events at the Miami Beach Auditorium in the 1950s and also at the Dinner Key Auditorium. He was one of the co-founders of the famed 5th Street Gym on Miami Beach. We lost him in August of 1963. He was buried with honors. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Joe Schaefer. Moving on to the media category, our next inductee, an award-winning columnist, an old-school storyteller about sports and just about everything else. He found himself in Florida, living with the family of a girlfriend who had broken up with him, when the mother tried to nudge him, pointing out an ad for being a sports writer in South Dade County. He got the job, took it, only to get fired a year later when his response from an edict to stop covering African American athletes, he ramped it up instead. That's what kind of guy he is. After a year or so of freelancing, he was hired by the Miami News and emerged as an elegant, emphatic writer and won numerous writing awards. Throughout his career, more than 40 years, he's rubbed elbows with all the elites in boxing, including our very own late Muhammad Ali. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Tom Archdeacon. Our next inductee is a commentator who has the most time invested in Deportes Telemundo. He's the Boxeo Telemundo co-host. During his extensive career, he has covered more than 1,000 fights, including De La Hoya Camacho, Tyson Holyfield, and Chavez De La Hoya, among others. His considerable boxing knowledge and extensive experience is what distinguishes him in the world of sports. Besides Telemundo's boxing coverage, he has narrated Olympic Games as well as World Cup, and he's also known as the Spanish voice of the Miami Dolphins. Boxeo Telemundo is now in its 28th year. It cemented him as one of the cornerstones of Telemundo's sports entertainment programming. He's now recognized as the longest-serving boxing blow-by-blow announcer on Spanish-language television in the United States. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Rene Tirado. Our next inductee was a journalist known for his sports writing for the Miami Herald. Some refer to him as the best writer of sports in America. His journalistic career began at the age of 11, where he began covering small events for his hometown in Athens, Georgia. By the time he was 15, he was promoted to sports editor. It made him the youngest person in the country to hold that position. After moving to Miami, he accepted a lucrative position at the Miami Herald in 1956 and stayed there until his retirement. He was brought on as a columnist and assistant editor and later became the sports editor when the previous editor chose to retire. In his 50-plus years, he covered the growth of Miami as a sports city from a tourist destination with no professional teams to a world city with franchises in all the major sports and, of course, a hotbed of professional boxing. When he retired as the Herald sports editor in 2003, he's contributed columns to the newspaper until 2016. He wrote his last piece eulogizing the great Muhammad Ali. We just lost him last year. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Edwin Pope. We move on to our participant category. This gentleman, a man of many trades, in his 50-plus years in boxing, he promoted fights, set up fighter contracts, assembled organization, along with winning numerous awards. He was also an accomplished trainer, training former world champions Alexis Arguello, Wilfredo Gomez, and Jesse James Leija, just to name a few. He holds the late, great Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Alexis Arguello close to his heart. When he opened up his gym in Carolina, Puerto Rico, he named it the Alexis Arguello Boxing Academy. He's promoted fights in the Miami Orange Bowl all the way to Wembley Arena in England. He's also received the prestigious Roberto Clemente Award in Puerto Rico for founding and running the youth boxing program. He's trained champion amateurs and pros, made matches, and even filled in as a cut man when needed. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Don Kahn. Our next inductee became involved in boxing in the early 1970s in Miami. He's a true student of the game who learned not only from trainers, but also studied the great boxers of his day to learn styles and tendencies. He also learned about the business outside of the ring, learning how to train other fighters and even how to put up a ring for a show. He had a 5-year pro career in which he fought champions like Ray Boom Boom Mancini and Alfredo Escalera. He won the Florida State titles in welterweight and super lightweight divisions. These days, he devotes his time to his company, TV Connections, working as an agent for up-and-coming young fighters and connecting them with world-class boxing promoters. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Johnny Torres, and he is here with us today.
Johnny.
Our next inductee, best known as a Miami, Florida fight manager, began his boxing career as an amateur in Newark, New Jersey under the alias Marty Kaplan. In 1952, while attending the University of Miami, they put in the yearbook that he is listed as a standout on the school's boxing team. He had 125 amateur bouts before he turned professional in 1960. He worked with advertising designers. He was also a painter and a sculptor. He also formed the Mendoza Group. The Mendoza Group was comprised of well-known sportsmen who sponsored and developed promising boxers such as Marcel Clay, Roberto Ayala, Vinny Curto, James Scott, and Lou Essa. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame class of 2018 officially welcomes Murray Gabby. We now move on to our commission category. Our inductee next, after serving his country in the United States Army, moved to Florida. When Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Don Hazelton started using him as an inspector, which he did for the next 3 years, he was then made chief inspector for the west coast of Florida, which he did for 5 years. But judging was his ultimate goal. He relinquished his chief inspector position and became a trailing judge for about a year, and in June of 1992, he was given his first license to judge. He has earned a reputation as always being impartial, no hometown decisions. He's judged fights all over the world for every major boxing organization. He is also a longtime supporter of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, and he's a previous winner of the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame Lifetime Achievement Award. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Don Ballas. And he is with us today. Our next inductee was an Air Force veteran who boxed while he was in the service. He retired because of cataracts after an amateur career of 87 wins in 92 fights, including European Air Force and intra-service championships. He decided to become a referee and a judge. He was accepted by the WBA as an international official in 1984. He refereed several world title fights, as well as conducting numerous boxing clinics and seminars for young amateur and professional boxers around the world. For his dedication in the sport, the WBA named him one of its officials of the year in 1989. The WBC named him its 1990 Referee of the Year. He ended up his boxing career after 24 years as a referee and 18 years as a well-respected judge. We lost him in August of 2012. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame officially welcomes to the class of 2018, Bernie Soto. Our next inductee, a Miami native, took a big interest in boxing after high school. He was attending college. He began to frequent many of the gyms, just working out to stay in shape, not fighting. But in 1991, his good friend, Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Ed Levine, was part of the commission and invited him to train to become a judge. He has since judged more than 600 pro bouts, including 50 world title fights and several hundred regional title fights. He's judged for all the major organizations all over the world, including Europe, Japan, Mexico, and South America. One of his big honors came in 2012. Boxing.com named him the second most consistent boxing judge in the world, only second to Canada's Hubert Earl. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Rocky Young. Rocky would have loved to have been with us today, but it was his daughter's birthday, so he is in Miami with his family, sends his best, and he'll be more than happy to be here with us in June. Now we come to our fighter category. Our first inductee, while attending college, entered a tough woman competition. Yes, they do have those. It was on a dare, and she won it. Well, after graduating in '91, she decided to pursue a professional ring career. Her 6-round unanimous decision victory over Deirdre Gogarty on Showtime television in '96 earned her recognition by the WBC as its nominal female world lightweight champion. Many consider this great fight and to be the one that elevated women's boxing to the world stage. Shortly after, she became the first woman boxer to be featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated in April of '96. She is considered one of the most successful and prominent female boxers and the person who legitimized women's participation in the world of boxing. Her professional record stands at a final 49 wins, 7 losses, 3 draws, 31 wins by way of knockout. In 2016, she became the first female boxer inducted into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018 from Orlando, Christy Salters Martin. Our next inductee is a native of Uganda who began his pro career in London, now living in Nevada. He's a former WBC super featherweight world champion. He was originally promoted by Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Phil Alessi in Tampa, also trained by Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Jimmy Williams. He's famously remembered for the WBC World Junior Lightweight title win over Rafael Bazooka Limon in a 15-round decision in 1981. If you've never seen that fight, do yourself a favor and YouTube it, because it's worth a look. He was an exciting, crowd-pleasing fighter who defeated such fighters as Bobby Chacon, Rafael Limon, John Montes, Melvin Paul, Charlie Brown, and many, many more. After giving the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame the late world champion Alexis Arguello all he could handle in a fight as well. Final professional record, 45 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw, many of those fights right here in the state of Florida. He was inducted in the World Boxing Hall of Fame in 1993. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Cornelius Boza Edwards. Our next inductee, one of the most decorated amateur boxers in the history of his home country of Guyana. He won multiple national titles and represented his country in the '84 Olympics in Los Angeles. In '86, he immigrated to the United States and was quarterfinalist in the New York City Golden Gloves. In 1997, he came to the SJC Boxing Gym here in Fort Myers and began working with trainer Steve Canton. He finally fulfilled his lifelong dream of becoming a world champion. He won every round on the judges' scorecards to capture the NBA super middleweight title. He retired with a final record of 17 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. After his own ring career, he's worked with as a professional trainer and manager. He's trained several finalists and semifinalists in the New York City Golden Gloves tournament. As a certified boxing and fitness trainer, he's implemented successful boxing programs at several of New York City's finest boxing gyms. We welcome to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame class of 2018, Steve Frank. Incidentally, Steve was hoping to be here with us today, but guess what? He's in New York. Guess what's going on in New York right now?
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good, you're right. So, unable to make it down here, but he certainly will be with us in June. Another guy that's kind of stuck up in the Northeast right now. World rated in the junior middleweight, light heavyweight, and cruiserweight divisions. 1975, he was ranked #1 in the world as a light heavyweight by the WBC. Unfortunately, he never got his well-deserved title shot. He fought and trained many times right here in Florida. Among the notable fighters he defeated were Don Fulmer, Jimmy Dupree, Tom Bethea, Isaac Lobert, Ramon Ranquilla, and Christy Elliott. He also fought world champions like Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Luis Manuel Rodriguez, right here in Florida, and the late middleweight champion Rodrigo Valdez. At one point, he fought 8 consecutive opponents who were ranked in the top 10. His final ring record stood at 59 wins, 16 losses, 3 draws, 1 no contest, 27 wins by way of knockout. After his own career, he began training fighters and worked with a pair of world champions. He also became an actor and actually appeared in the original Rocky. In 2007, his son, a boxing writer, wrote a play called Kid Shamrock, based on his father's life and boxing career. He was inducted into New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame in 2001, and the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame in 2013. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Bobby Cassidy. Our next inductee, born in Pensacola, Florida, he defeated Julian Flores to win the IBO World Featherweight title. 2 years later, he won the NABF championship with a decision of tough Harold Warren. In 2000, he defeated Freddie Norwood to win the World Boxing Association featherweight title. After 4 defenses, he lost it to the great Juan Manuel Marquez. After his defeat to Marquez, Gaynor lost the challenge to WBA title holder Chris John by decision. He closed out his fine career in 2012 with a final record of 43 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw, 25 wins by way of knockout. He started a charter high school for at-risk kids in 1999, which he named after his late grandmother. He also started Fit Nation, which is a childhood obesity program with goals to help kids make healthy lifestyle changes, all in his native Pensacola, Florida. Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Derek Smoke Gaynor. Another native of Pensacola was a mere 8 years old when he was introduced to boxing by his uncle, who was friends with fellow Pensacola native Roy Jones Jr. Over the next 10 years, he racked up nearly 100 amateur bouts, including were tried the trips to compete in the National Golden Gloves, the Junior Olympics, and the National Silver Gloves, where he was named Outstanding Boxer of the tournament. He turned pro in '96 and ran off a 7-year career. He won the IBC Intercontinental Lightweight title in '97 and defended that belt 3 times before moving down to super featherweight. He defeated Ariel Nistal in a world title eliminator, which paved the way for him to challenge then unbeaten Acelito Freitas, who was the WBO World Super Featherweight Champion. That was in 2000 in Detroit. He shocked the champion, putting him down on the canvas in the first round, but while gunning for a knockout in the second, was caught by Freitas and stopped after 2 knockdowns. His final career ended at 25 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw, 11 wins by way of knockout. These days, he works for a utilities company in Pensacola while trying to secure a building where he can one day open a gym of his own and coach young fighters. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Lemuel Nelson. The class of 2018 had a brief amateur career, but won the Sunshine State Game Championships after his debut at the age of 19. He turned pro in 1992. In 1994, he won the Florida State Middleweight Championship with an impressive first-round knockout of Donnie Herring in St. Pete. He hit the apex of his career in 1997 when he traveled out to Las Vegas to challenge for the WBO Middleweight Championship against champion Lonnie Bradley. He gave Bradley all he could handle before succumbing in the 8th round. Among the many notable fighters he took on during his career include former multi-world champion Antonio Tarver. He stepped out of boxing with a final record of 20 wins, 7 losses, 12 wins by way of knockout. These days, he works as an assistant trainer to his longtime trainer, Harold Weiland in Sarasota, as an assistant coach at the Sarasota Boxing Club. The Florida Boxing Hall of Fame welcomes to the class of 2018, Johnny Ghetto Blaster Williams.
Where's that boom box?
That's what it was.
Ah, what it is.
Johnny, over here, champ.
Final inductee grew up in Haverstraw, New York. He was involved in programs that were sponsored by the local police department. He started in the boxing program when he was a mere 11 years old. Police told him if he wanted to continue to box, he had to stay out of trouble. He did. He continued to box when he got in the Army and won the All-Army and Armed Forces Boxing Championships. He represented the United States on the U.S. national boxing team, competing against other countries' boxing teams. When he was discharged from the Army in '92, he moved back to his home state of New York, where he became a police officer. He also continued to serve in the Air Force Reserves. In 1995, he relocated to Pensacola and embarked on a short but successful pro boxing career with his old Army coach, Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Alton Murkison. Mark was called to serve active duty multiple times after that and deployed overseas to serve in the Iraq War as a combat medic. He's written also a pair of inspirational books, which I believe one of them is actually here on sale today at the front. He also did a tremendous job last year serving as our Florida Boxing Hall of Fame keynote speaker at our gala dinner. Officially welcoming to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame class of 2018, Mark Lanson. Also, the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame has a tradition with recognizing individuals in boxing with the Lifetime Achievement Award. This year's recipients, we have 2. We have longtime matchmaker for Florida Boxing Hall of Famer Tutico Zabala's All-Star Boxing. And we also have a very longtime successful trainer in the Tampa area who trained the likes of Keith Thurman and many more. This year, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame goes to matchmaker Ruben de Jesus and the late trainer Ben Getty. So there is your class of 2018, many of whom are represented here today. So thrilled to have them.
Let's give him a round of applause.